2K has just revealed their first look at the new WWE 2K25 MyFaction mode with an update to Proving Grounds, which is now the World Tour. How are personas going to work in the game? And is it still monetized to hell? Well, let's get into the gameplay footage and find out. So this footage is courtesy of the Pro Wrestling Shoot, so all credit goes to them for capturing the footage at 2K Creator Fest. So first off, you'll notice from this screen that yes, MyFaction is very much the same. Like, it looks the same, right? So when you start up the mode, you're still creating your faction, you create your brand, and then you choose your starter pack, and your starter pack determines what characters you have to start with, and I think they also get you an exclusive MyFaction persona card. So here the Pro Wrestling Shoot chooses the Striker starter pack, and you get all the cosmetics for Strikers, or sorry, not Strikers, Powerhouse, and the Solo Sikoa that you get as part of that pack is a persona card, and it's a Solo Sikoa wearing the black suit with the Ulafala and the red glove, with Paul Heyman as a manager, which is very, very cool as well. But yes, this is all very much similar to what was there last year. World Tour is kind of a new mode that's coming to MyFaction. It's replacing what was previously Proving Grounds, and it's allowing for a more non-linear approach to progression through MyFaction. Going through more of the menus, you still have the live events, so each live event goes for a certain amount of time, and depending on completing the objectives within that event, you get the reward on the right there. I'm covering up, but yeah, it's usually just cards. Or card packs, I should say. So here's another example here. Guide Uncle Howdy and Eric Rowan to the win over American Made. So this is an Extreme Rules Tornado tag match. They have some custom rules in there. You have to play as Uncle Howdy and Eric Rowan as part of this live event, and the reward is a set amount of MyFaction points, and the MyFaction points can then be used to purchase individual cards or card packs in the store. So the Pro Wrestling Shoot also said that he did look into Faction Wars, but Faction Wars was just this linear one line of nodes. I have to assume that that was designed specifically for the press event and not actually indicative of the final Faction Wars, although it does say stage 1, so perhaps the first stage is always just a linear line and then it opens up from there, but I don't think that's necessarily how it's going to play out. I think that that was designed just for this Creator Fest. As part of the previous press events that they've done throughout the Royal Rumble and stuff, I think there were some interviews and maybe a ringside report. I can't remember where I heard this information from, but they were adding up to 50 new node types to MyFaction. So that usually means like more match types, more match variation in the mode, because I think a lot of people were saying that it's very repetitive. You're always doing multi-person like Hell in a Cell matches or multi-person ladder matches, or these huge 4 or 5 person tag match, well, not 5 person, but these like 6 and 8 people tag matches that are just, they just go on forever and they're just very hard to do. And you also get the return of the weekly towers. The weekly towers return the same as they have for the last couple of years. So every single week in the towers, you get access to a new batch of matches. You complete the matches, complete the objectives, and you gain rewards. And at the end of it, after a certain amount of time, you do get bigger rewards. It starts off with just individual card packs. It then goes on to like individual cards, exclusive cards for weekly towers, and then you can get some really, really good stuff towards the end as well. So if you've ever played MyFaction before, you know what this screen is. When you play a match in MyFaction, this is the reward screen that you get. It just tells you all of the match actions that you have completed with the total amount of MyFaction points you've earned for that match. And then on the right, you can see challenges that are being tracked. So although you may not have completed these challenges, you're on your way to completing them. So for example, one of them there is winning streak, win 15 matches in a row. So obviously you winning this match gave him 1 win. He would now need to play more, but that will always stay on the right there just to say this is what you're currently working towards. Moving back to the World Tour, this is the kind of mode that the World Tour looks like. So you have, for the start of the game anyway, you get access to the United States of America. You have this area in America to explore. I say explore, it's a menu, whatever. you go to the different states. So there's Los Angeles, not states, cities. Los Angeles, Dallas, Orlando, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, and Chicago. Each one of them has 5 different matches to complete. Now, theoretically, you can do these in a non-linear order. So you can choose how you want to progress in the mode. You can choose to go for specific rewards. But when I was looking at the gameplay footage for this mode especially, it looked like there was a lot of prerequisites. So I don't know if maybe it was just like streamlined for the press event, but all the other matches like that have the padlock on them, so for example match 3 there says you need to complete match 2. When they went to another city, it seemed like it was saying to complete a match in another city. So I don't really understand how they can say it's non-linear, but then also all the matches have padlocks and you have to do them in a specific order. I'm just assuming that this is streamlined for the press event and not actually how the final mode is going to look. I could be wrong, but it just seems odd and a little bit contradictory statements here of, is the mode going to be linear or not? Simple as. So we have now just scooted over to Just Brian's content for MyFaction. He was able to actually sit down with one of the lead developers for the mode and go through some of the interesting new features that are in the mode. What I really like about World Tour is when you complete the tours in a specific city, you will gain access to a Persona card. So there will absolutely still be Persona cards locked to the card packs and all the other like areas you can get cards, but for the Persona cards that are in World Tour, you can unlock them by just completing the tour. So the example here is Chicago. Completing the tours will unlock CM Punk 2010, along with a whole bunch of other cosmetics and stuff. But I still think this is a much better way to unlock Personas, especially if you're just having to play this mode, you're playing NPC matches, and you just have to complete the goals. And I think that's a much better way of unlocking these Persona cards rather than just random chats. What I was talking about the linear nature of this mode, you can see here that Chicago is locked, but Orlando seems to be open. So if Brian here was able to go to Orlando, he would highlight that and go through those matches. It also seems like that the Chicago area is locked until you complete the quest Power Moves. So it's like, is Power Moves, is that like the tutorial ending one that'll unlock all the cities, or do you have to do them in like a linear order? It'll get answered eventually, but just wanting to put it out there as a thought. Another thing that the developer noted as well is obviously this is America, but you can see South America and Canada there. Over time, as the mode progresses, they will open up more areas for you to do more world tours. So I'm assuming by the end of the year you will have access to essentially a full world map with lots of areas and hopefully lots of personas to unlock. It seems quite reasonable, to be honest. I don't hate it. I'm sure once I get into it I may dislike it more, but this doesn't seem like too much of a grind as opposed to previous years. One thing that Brian did do in his video as well is he actually did go through the rewards, but the rewards that they showed off in the press build here are not the final rewards that we'll be getting in the game. So if you are looking through this list trying to figure out what cards you're going to get, apparently this list is not indicative of what you will be getting in the final game, which again leads me to believe that this MyFaction experience was streamlined for the creators there to highlight the modes rather than what we're actually going to get in the final. Thanks to Just Brian as well, we get our first look at the store. So it does look like the first card pack is going to be called Ascent, but you still have access to the card market and the token market, and you unlock tokens by completing challenges in MyFaction, and you can purchase individual cards from the card market. Now, one thing that Just Brian did actually clarify, which I really appreciate that he did, was whether these Persona cards or the exclusive pack cards are going to be available for individual purchase from the card market. And the developer did say yes, they will be available individually from the card market for a price, but they will not be available when the pack drops. So for example, if you did want to unlock like The Rock 2024, which was in the previous year, you can buy him outright from the card market, but he wasn't available, or I guess in this scenario we're saying he's not available from the get-go, but he is available in the card pack. So if you buy the card packs, you've got a chance of drawing him. But if you want to buy him outright, you can do it from the card market, but it'll cost you either a lot of money or a lot of time. One really small detail that I really picked up on from the MyFaction early press footage is that MyFaction there has a loading bar. Now, I don't know if you've ever really gone into MyFaction. I didn't play it a whole ton, but I remember playing it before, and when you open up MyFaction, it takes you to a load screen, but it doesn't have any indication that the game's actually loading, and sometimes these load times can be very long, because it needs to connect online, it needs to update certain factors, like it might need to download new assets for new cards and stuff, or new challenges, and yeah, it can take a bit of time to load into the mode sometimes. But what I really appreciate this year is they've added a loading bar, so when you do go into MyFaction, you can actually tell that the mode is loading, which is great. I just think that's a great user experience addition, and ultimately, I know it's just a loading bar, but like, it's just a cool addition. I really appreciate them doing that, because you never really know if because I remember back in, I mean, this is going back, but like 2K22, 2K23, you would go into MyFaction and the loading screen would crash, and you wouldn't know that it's crashed. So you'd just be sat there watching a load screen, expecting it to eventually kick in, but it's actually just crashed the game, and you have to like completely close it. Having the loading bar there totally gets rid of that issue, because, well, it doesn't get rid of the issue, but if the game does crash, you'll know it, because the loading bar won't be moving. Just a clarification on what I said earlier, this is the MyFaction Solo Sikoa, and he doesn't have red gloves, but he does have a red belt and the Ulafala, so yes, this is a Persona card. Solo Sikoa doesn't have red gloves, my bad. So that's our first look into MyFaction. It's very much the same as previous years. I think I really appreciate how they streamlined getting the Persona cards, especially. I never got the Persona cards in 2K24 because it was just too complicated to get them. And I didn't want to spend money just getting random packs in the hopes of getting Persona parts, and then you have to collect all the parts to unlock the Persona cards. It's just too much effort, like it really is. So I just appreciate them streamlining that aspect of it to then just being complete the World Tour objectives, complete the tour, and get the Persona card. That's not to say that there won't be other Persona cards locked to other modes or challenges that you also need to either grind for or buy for, but that's just the nature of the mode. Unfortunately, with things like MyFaction, if they weren't popular and they didn't generate money, then they wouldn't be in the game, and that's just the realities of game development. And if, you know, with things like FIFA and Ultimate Team, we always talk about how Ultimate Team is just this cancer in the game industry, and it's terrible for microtransactions and stuff, but if it didn't make FIFA the highest earning game every year, year on year, then of course they're going to include it. Of course 2K are going to look at that and go, how can we add in Ultimate Team for WWE, for NBA? It just makes a lot of money, business sense, I guess, for them to do that, and I really don't blame them for it. But like I said in the Island video, I think that you need to strike a good balance between, is the game fun enough for me to want to spend money in the game, or is the game too grindy to the point where I have to buy stuff to progress? I think that that's a really important distinction here, because I want, if the game is really fun and I want to put time into it, then I maybe want to support it by speeding up the process a little bit. But if the game is made maliciously to the point where you have to spend hundreds of hours, almost thousands of hours, just to unlock one item, and the progression is literally just like one stat point, or in this case, if you're just getting like cards that are limited time use or don't have huge stat boosts or something to that effect, then why would I continue playing the mode? It needs to keep me invested, and it ideally would be fun enough to make me want to invest rather than needing to invest. But hey, that's going to be my high horse for today. I'm going to get off now. Thank you very much for watching. Are you excited to play MyFaction? I'm personally really excited to try out the World Tour mode. It seems quite fair. I'm curious to see how the MyFaction plays out this year. And on the channel, I'm happy to spend a bit of time playing the mode for your benefit and seeing if there's easier ways to unlock stuff within MyFaction. But that's going to be us for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing the video. It really helps us grow. Thank you very much for watching again. Bye for now.